Can you hear it? Can you hear it off in the distance? That's the transfer portal. The train's almost arrived at USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC. It's part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, it's always going to be free. And I just want to remind everybody how much I appreciate your support. Today's episode, it's brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. USC's roster is in good shape. In pretty good shape. Coach Riley has said they don't think they're going to be too aggressive with the spring transfer portal window. That opens up tomorrow, the 16th, day after tax day. But there are a couple areas where, the roster could be better just as far as depth is concerned. I don't think you're not going to find any plug-in starters in this upcoming transfer window. That's not what USC is looking for. They're looking for depth pieces. And just at a few different positions, if they even go with a few different positions. One specific spot, besides linebacker, we're going to focus on in this segment is offensive line. Offensive tackle, specifically. So we know that Elijah Page, Tobias Raymond, you're probably penciling in their names as the starters at left tackle and right tackle, respectively. And then you got Justin Taonu, who's pressing hard for playing time as well. He can play both positions. He showed, he gave us a sampling of what he was capable of doing in the bowl game at left tackle when he had to be inserted in the game when Elijah Page was hurt. But after you get past those three guys, and Tobias and Justin are still young. Elijah isn't exactly, long in the tooth or growing a gray beard yet. But once you get past those guys who have some experience, you got some talented guys, but they're younger. So that's where USC's at. And that's why they're looking at the offensive line in the transfer portal coming up in a couple days. In fact, USC is I don't know if he's still on campus, but on Monday, they hosted a grad transfer from Ferris State, Division II. Ferris State offensive lineman Bryce George is entering the transfer portal. His agency reports, it's QC Sports, they told Steve Wiltfong and Pete Nakos from On3 via X on Saturday. So Bryce George is he's a Division II All-American, two-time All-Conference selection as well. 6'5", 315 pounds, and he's got 3 national championship rings that he could flash around. Yeah. So right now, Bryce George has 3 visits that he's lined up. I just want to reiterate, he's a Division II caliber player. That's where he's been playing, Ferris State. He's now trying to jump up to the FBS level. He's planning to, we know he's at USC. He's also planning to take a visit to Cal, Berkeley, and Iowa. Going to go check out the Hawkeyes. I mean, if you want to talk about a late bloomer, that's what Bryce George would be when it comes to the offensive line. I'm not talking about his personal accolades, those national championship rings, all-conference performer, All-American D2. Coming out of high school, he wasn't even an offensive lineman. He was a tight end, and he played defensive line. He played high school ball in Detroit. Now, what's interesting to me, he's visiting USC, he's visiting Cal and Iowa. He's a Midwest guy. But he wants to check out 2 West Coast schools. Maybe he's got a little bit of that Jean-Ray Reed vibe going right now. He's seen certain parts of the country. Now he wants to check out what does the West Coast has to offer. Here's my thinking. The way Cal is losing offensive players, I'm talking about their best players. Their quarterback is now at Indiana. They lost a wide receiver who's jumping into the transfer portal, Marvin Anderson. Their running back, Jade Knott, SoCal guy. He's jumping into the transfer portal. Too bad he didn't do that earlier, like in December. Maybe he'd be at USC now. Who knows? USC is pretty happy with the guys they have right now. I'm talking about Waymo, as well as Eli Sanders. Lincoln Riley is really stoked about the running back room right now. But anyways, let me continue talking about Bryce George, the offensive lineman. So to me, it's interesting that he wants to check out 2 West Coast schools, 2 academic schools. And he played offensive tackle for Ferris State. But is he an offensive tackle at the FBS level? I watched some of his film. The first thing that jumped out at me was like, because you always, who do you want to compare him to? You go through that, you go through that game in your head. Well, who does he remind you of? He reminds me of Cortland Ford. Remember the young man who played for USC a few years ago, transferred to Kentucky? He was probably better suited to play guard than offensive tackle. Similar body styles. And when I watch the footwork, I see some similarities there. What I like about Bryce's film is, he stays between him and the quarterback, he and the running back. So he's very sound at his job. Doesn't look like he gets beat too many times. Again, I'm watching a highlight film, so I'm not going to go back and watch every snap that he took at Ferris State. But again, 2-time All-Conference, All-American, and as far as team accolades are concerned, he's got 3 championship rings. Can do worse, right? But is USC looking at him? Are they grading him as an offensive tackle or as an interior offensive lineman? I'm not sure. He's better than anyone who's currently on USC's roster right now. But again, he has that championship pedigree. You cannot, it's hard to put a value on that. Because he knows what it takes to win. And you want somebody who's bringing that kind of culture into your locker room, that type of maturity. So far, USC's brought in DJ Wingfield, the transfer from Purdue, who also has tackle experience. He's battling right now for that left guard position. You also brought in Jeonre Reed, the general from Syracuse, who's trying to lock up that center job. He and Killian O'Connor are going to battle that out. But again, DJ Wingfield came to USC, and most assume he's coming here for that left guard job. Maybe. Coach Riley has mentioned a couple of times that Tobias Raymond, he's probably been there, one of the best, if not the best offensive lineman so far this spring camp. So if Page is locked in at left tackle and Alani Noah is pretty much locked in at right guard, Tobias is the right tackle, or is it Justin? Where would Bryce George play? Is he coming in to play tackle, or is he coming in to compete for that left guard job? What we do know is he could probably play inside or outside. I mean, his body, when you look at his body, he looks like an interior lineman. So you got to like his versatility right off the top. And here's another reason why he'd be a good fit for USC. One, that versatility. He can play offensive tackle, and he looks like he's big enough that you could slide him inside as long as he can make that transition to playing guard. Something else you like about him, I don't think he's going to break I'll call it the NIL bank. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. So whether Bryce George is jumping on USC's train or not, we'll find out soon enough, right? But here's the thing. He's on campus, so we know USC is interested. If not this young man, maybe they go find somebody at the JUCO level. The other positions to keep an eye on, guys who show up on campus. I think you're looking at depth, definitely linebacker, maybe cornerback, possibly wide receiver, in that order. But I thought it was interesting news that I'd bring to everybody's attention that, USC actually has somebody on campus, offensive lineman. They're trying to address a need. And again, this is a type of player, if he shows up and he presses and he becomes a starter, fantastic. But I think you're looking at a depth piece here, somebody who can push other players to get better. So we'll see what happens. But again, transfer portal, it opens tomorrow. If you're watching this episode of Locked on USC on Tuesday, the 15th, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't become a subscriber yet, click that red subscribe button. Stop procrastinating. It's free. Do me another favor, smash that thumbs up button. Both of those are going to continue to help the show grow. And I don't want you to miss an episode, so click that bell notification so you're updated with all the USC news, notes, and information you want. And when you're done making Locked on USC your first listen every day, we've got a subscription special over there at wersc.com, the other place I work, $1 for a week, and you're going to get a lot of information. So go check it out. All right, we got 2 more segments coming up. In the next segment, I'm going to tell you why USC is set at quarterback and why Nico Iamaleava is not a good fit for USC. There is nothing, absolutely nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. I remember when I used to have season tickets to the Lakers. This was before they moved to Staples Center, Crypto, whatever they're calling it, back at the Great Western Forum. Yeah, it was some fun times back then. Anyways, when you're at the arena, you can feel the energy. It's electric. You just want to be a part of it. But yeah, I hate that stress of last-minute ticket shopping. I know I do. Game Time makes it easy, and they make it really easy, really fast to get playoff tickets. Even when the demand, it's sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as the tip-off gets closer when you use Game Time, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I like using Game Time. Priority last-minute deals. Like I said, you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. They have their all-in pricing, which means there's no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. And that means peace of mind. With seat views before you check out, which is, again, my favorite feature, there's no surprise fees. You get the lowest price guarantee, and you can book in total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, it looks like North Carolina Tar Heels head coach Bill Belichick said, no thanks. And I'm pretty sure the SEC, all those teams are out of the loop. If Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss was thinking about it, I don't know. I believe if you jump into the spring transfer portal window, you're not allowed to transfer within conference in the SEC. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I'm pretty sure that's the rule. Right now, Tulane and UCLA are being mentioned as the best landing spots for Nico Iamaleava, the young man from Tennessee who might have overplayed his hand. Not might have, he did. And why am I bringing this up again? Because for some reason, USC's name continues to be attached with Nico potentially landing in Southern California. I'm not sure why UCLA would want to help Nico and his family, especially after his little brother left UCLA kind of standing at the altar just before signing day. He's now at Arkansas. But again, I'm trying to understand why Nico's name keeps coming up with USC. Is it because he's from Southern California? Obviously. Let me just say it again. Number one, USC is not pursuing Nico. They can't come out publicly and say we're pursuing him anyways. So right now, USC is not pursuing. And from everything I've been told, there's no interest there on USC's side. And I mean, look, do what I did. Go watch his film. Go watch Nico's film. Is there anything that pops out that makes him a better quarterback for Lincoln Riley than Jaden Iamaleava or Husan Longstreet or Sam Heward? So what is it? Because he's from California? Because he's a former 5-star? You go take a look at that quarterback class, none of them have really panned out so far. None of them. Not a good look. So my question to you, the fans, USC fans, anybody who's watching, why would Coach Riley and USC's general manager, Chad Bowden, even think about screwing up the locker room in April? And we're talking about doing that for a guy who wants more than $2.5 million to start a quarterback. A guy who was making $2.5 million to start for an SEC team. That wasn't good enough. USC has Jaden returning as starter. You've got your highly rated 5-star in Husan Longstreet. Your quarterback situation on the roster is fine. It's taken care of. In my opinion, adding Iamaleava, you're adding unnecessary competition. And potentially you're talking about really disrupting everybody's development, whether that's Jaden, whether that's Husan's. You're bringing in a starting level caliber quarterback. That's not what USC needs, and not at that price range. And bottom line, USC has already gone down this road a couple of times. Why inflict another wound upon yourself? You've already been through this NIL drama. Remember Bill Alexander? Remember Emmanuel Preon? USC's already moved on from this type of player. So from a chemistry point of view, it's a non-starter. Second, right? Let's say USC's interested. I'm just going to play devil's advocate. Contrarian. Let's say you bring Nico in. Well, now all of a sudden, again, we're talking, it's the end of April, early May. He's going to find himself in the same spot that Jaden Iamaleava found himself in last year, just with less time trying to learn the system. Talk about awkward. Talk about wasting a year of development. Keep in mind, Coach Riley's offense, it's different than the one that Josh Heupel was running that he runs at Tennessee. Josh Heupel is more of that Art Briles, I don't know, what do you want to call it? We'll call it system, right? It's definitely more up-tempo. Lincoln Riley's is more of a pro-style scheme. So is Nico ready to make that type of transition? And then you have to take this into consideration. Bottom line, USC, they're trying to rebuild its program. They're trying to do it with guys who they're recruiting, guys who they're going to retain, develop. Just because Nico is from Southern California, and just because he has playoff experience, that doesn't make him the right choice. I get there's a bunch of you out there who feel sympathetic for him, think, oh, he's just a kid. He made a bad decision. Yeah, he did. But he's not a kid. He's a young adult. Next year, he's old enough to drink. He's old enough to carry a gun, defend this country. He's old enough to vote. I'll say it again. I think we need to change that paradigm. Stop calling these young men kids. Stop giving them the mulligan excuse in their back pocket to say, I made a mistake. I'm a kid. Where's that line in the sand? Why are there 15 different lines in the sand for when somebody needs to be accountable? Again, your best ability is your accountability. Whether he is following the lead of his father, I don't care. That doesn't concern me. At some point, these young men who are being paid big time money to play big time college football have to cut that umbilical cord. They've got to become their own man. And they've got to deal with the consequences. And one of those consequences is can't come to USC. Not today, not tomorrow. You're not the right fit. So maybe Tulane's willing to spend the money. I know UCLA is not going to find $2.5 million, in their couch. They are NIL poor. As I mentioned on yesterday's episode, this young man needs to rehabilitate his image. Since we're talking about name, image, likeness, right? Go take less money. Go play at a place like Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State, Sacramento State. If you want to come back to California, be a leader. Take less money. Go improve your play at quarterback. That will be the best thing to help this young man get to the NFL. It's not coming to USC and having Coach Riley coach him up. This young man needs leadership training. And unfortunately, he's going to have to get it somewhere else. Because he's not a right fit for USC. Not right now. I don't know. Maybe had he decided to do this when he was contemplating not playing in the playoff game for Tennessee? Maybe. But even then, I'm still in the hard pass. And I'll explain to you why in the next segment. Let's do this. I apologize. There we go. Yeah, you know what? Not only am I missing money out of my bank account, I'm missing my brain right now. So every now and then, you're wondering, where did the money go? You spent it. That's where it went. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's like having your own personal CFO. It's giving you full visibility, total control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending, do it all in one place. Now you can stop just managing your money. You can actually start building some wealth. And you're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple different applications to make this happen, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan some long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off. You get that for 1 full year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Check it out. All right. Excuse me. So just to continue the topic of why Nico isn't a good fit for USC. So last year, Nico was making, or he was set to make $2.5 million on an SEC roster this year, 2025. Now he's talking to Tulane and UCLA. You know what? Fine. That's good. This is exactly what the market needed. Remind everybody, I said it on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC. Someone needs to be humbled. Someone needs to be made an example of. It sucks that it's going to be Nico, but even if it is a dad issue, it had to happen. NIL is broken, and it needs to be fixed. So you needed something like this to happen in order to get the mechanic started right away. The mechanic being the NCAA. I know, not the greatest reputation, but that's what we have right now. College football needs a reset. It really does. And I use the word collusion. People are like, oh, no, you can't do that. It's against the rules. I remind everybody, there are no rules right now. And look, no one is saying that Nico can't play. I'm not saying give him what was that quarterback for the 49ers who took a knee, sat out, and Colin. Anyways, no one's saying blackball him. But I know, about to contradict myself. However, you can't have anybody holding teams hostage for more money because it's a bad look. It sets a bad precedent. Colin Kaepernick. There it is. No one's saying that Nico can't play, but I am saying that every single conference, every single team in the Power 4 conferences, they got to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? Nope, not going to happen. There's a person we're making an example of, a cautionary tale. This is how we're going to fix NIL. It's going to go back to name, image, and likeness. It's not going to be pay for play. You got to fix it somehow, right? I can't think of anyone who's going to be willing to pony up $4 million, let alone 2.5. And this has to be the worst negotiated deal ever. I mean, if you were worth $4 million, great. Show up to practice, get your deal finalized wherever you're going to go, jump into the transfer portal. Act like a professional. But here's the thing. He didn't have a $4 million deal lined up. No one's willing to pony up that kind of cash. And as I mentioned in the second segment of the show, he actually tried to pull this stunt before Tennessee played their playoff game. I don't think that's the reason why Tennessee looked like crap. But still, it's not a good look. There's so many excuses being made. Look, everyone already knew that things were out of control and that the transfer portal makes it way too easy for these young men to just kind of flip around, go from program to program to program. It's worse than basketball. It is way worse than basketball. But now that we actually have an actual casualty, and because there are some parents and agents out there that are more concerned with their own greed and financial well-being than teaching someone to finish what they start, the value of fulfilling a contract, this is the perfect opportunity to say, hey, you know what? It's not always someone else's fault. It's your fault. Because I'm not hearing any of that BS. I don't want to hear it. Sure, the transfer portal can be eliminated. That would help. But just because you can do something, and I'm now talking about just because you're a player and you have the opportunity to go into the transfer portal or to renegotiate, that doesn't mean you have to do it. When you're 20 years old, you have to start to learn how to live with your decision. Stop blaming others. Don't let others find an excuse for you. Maybe I'm a hard ass when it comes to that. I don't care. I was raised differently. All right, I'm done. I know I kind of turned this into a little rant, but look, Nico is not a fit for USC. NIL is broken. This is a perfect opportunity. USC has other needs they need to focus on. As I mentioned in the first segment, offensive line, a linebacker, cornerback, wide receiver. I'll keep you updated, let you know what's happening. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. Have a practice report. Maybe we'll have some recruiting news. We'll see what happens. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.